Yo, what up, everybody, and welcome back to Mr. Smitty's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be continuing the tutorials on Google SketchUp, and today I'm going to be working towards 3D modeling a proper door hinge. So in this video, I'm actually going to walk through step by step how you can model a real world door hinge. So if you were to go look over at your bedroom door, this hinge will look very similar. Alright, and it's going to be three separate parts that we put into an assembly at the end, and then I'll show you how to use the rotate tool to actually move a piece of it. Alright, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. So everyone should navigate to their Google SketchUp for Schools. Again, if you just go to the link that's posted in our class, it'll bring you to the online version of Google SketchUp. You'll have to click Student, then Launch, and then sign into your Microsoft account, and it'll bring you here to your directory. Once you're in your directory, you're just going to go to Create, New, and then we're going to work in feet and inches. So again, we're just sculpting, we're just modeling, so we're not really worried about dimensions or anything in this video. You're just kind of eyeballing everything. We're not typing real dimensions because it's about refamiliarizing yourself with the tools from last year and building on what you've done this year. So we're going to start by deleting Temple Grandin by Temple. All right, now that Temple is gone, we're going to go ahead and start with our hinge. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to draw our path for our follow me for the hinge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the line tool. Again, guys, if you want, the shortcut is L. We'll bring up the line tool so you don't have to go click it in your bar. But I'm just going to click somewhere and I'm going to draw the height. So notice blue, we're working on the z-axis, which is blue, and I'm setting the height. So once I have the height, I'm going to go and grab my circle tool, and I'm going to place just a nice size circle on top of my line. Alright, so make sure you've centered it, and it should look like this once you've finished. And then I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to add a couple lines to make this design more fluid. Alright, so I'm going to add a line there, and I'm going to add a line right here just to make it a little more fluid. So at this point, we need to get rid of everything we don't want it to follow. So I'm going to press E on my keyboard, and it gives me the eraser tool. So now I'm going to go in here, and I'm actually going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that and that. Alright, so now what I'm left with is the actual path that I want my follow me to take in making this door hinge. So now that I have the path or the geometry, I need to draw the actual design of what it was going to look like. So I'm going to press R to get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the path I drew, and I am going to zoom in a little bit to make it more accurate. You might want to rotate and move, but we want to draw a long skinny rectangle over here to the left of the path. Alright, so something like that. Alright, so on my first try, we're eyeballing everything. In my eyes, this is a little long. So I'm going to grab my move tool over here, the one that looks like a compass, and I'm going to zoom in, grab that edge, and that wasn't an actual good grab there. Oh, neither was that. I'm going to grab that edge and just pull it on down. Alright, so I don't want it to be too long or too short. I think that looks good. Alright, so now that I have my design drawn and I have my path, we're going to use the follow me tool. So I'm going to come over here to the left and I'm going to select the follow me first, but then I'm going to select the cursor tool. I'm going to left drag click so I can highlight the entire path. Again, that's click, drag towards the left, make sure everything's inside this box, and it'll select it all. And now that I've done that, I'm going to grab the follow me tool and just click that, and it has made my path here. Alright, so this is like the frame for the hinge. I do notice it's a little thick, so I'm actually going to Control Z to back up, or I can click undo, and I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. I didn't like how thick it was. Remember, we're not using dimensions, we're just modeling. So you might have to make some changes as you go. So again, I'm going to click and left drag, use my follow me tool. Okay, that looks a lot better, alright? That looks like a real good size. Alright, so at this point um, we have our first part of our hinge. So let's go ahead and make it look like a hinge. So what I'm going to do now is take the arc tool, or if you press A on your keyboard, it'll give you the arc tool. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to draw an arc in this corner. So if it goes purple, it means it's tangent, which that's like a fluid arc, like it's symmetrical on each side, and that's what we want. All right, we want this to be a nice symmetrical arc. So I make sure it's purple, and then I click. Then I can go to this other corner, and if I just double click, it uses the technique we just used and places another one. All right, so again, I'll show that one more time. You click the side, make sure it's purple. All right, then you click again, and then you just go to the opposite corner and double click. All right, so this will give us our nice rounded edge. So we're going to need our push-pull tool, which is this tool over here. We're going to take this and we're going to push it and hover over this edge, and it'll delete it. Again, on this side, push it, hover over this edge, and it'll delete it. All right, so we're getting there. Starting to look like a nice hinge. I'm pretty excited about it. All right, so now we need to add our holes. So if you were to get up and walk over to your bedroom door and look at the hinge, you'll see that there's like 3, sometimes there's 5 or 6, but there's little holes that it's used to connect it to the door frame. So we're going to grab our circle tool, and we're just going to kind of estimate the middle here. I know that midpoint's there, so I'm going to draw me a circle there. So I want all my circles to be the same size, so we're going to use the move tool here. So I'm first going to grab the selection tool and click on it so it's blue, then grab the move tool. I'm going to find the center. I'm going to press control. All right, press control. What that does is if you look here at the bottom of the screen, if you look down here, control toggle copies. All right, so if we tap control, it'll make a copy of it for us. So I just click the center and then come down here and do that. So again, I'm going to do the same process. Highlight it, move tool, tap control on the keyboard, find the center, and I'm going to move this down. Alright, so I'm just kind of, again, I'm just eyeballing because, you know, we're practicing here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. If you wanted to, guys, you could actually go and add grid lines for yourself. So you can place these perfectly if you wanted. So you can go back and take your move tool. So that one's already highlighted. So I could actually zoom in and make sure that those are equal. If you want, you don't have to, because we are eyeballing a good bit of this. Again, to turn off grid lines, you can come over here and go to the eyeglasses and click delete. So the eyeglasses over here on the right, and if you click delete all guides, it'll delete those for you. Okay, so at this point, we've got our holes for our hinge, but I want to do what's called an offset, so that way it's like a hole within a hole. So our offset tool is over here inside of the push-pull. So I'm going to go grab the offset tool, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to just bring it in just a little bit and click again. All right, again, this tool remembers previous operations. So if I go inside of this one and double click, it gives me the same thing. I go inside this one and double click, same thing. All right, so now we're going to do another push-pull. So I'm going to go grab my push-pull tool, and I'm going to push this to the edge, push this to the edge so it deletes, and push that to the edge so that it deletes. All right. So at this point, we've really got our door hinge. It's looking pretty good. All right. So we're going to end up making a copy of this. So what I need to do now is put it into its own group. So I'm going to triple click 1, 2, 3. All right. To highlight an entire object, we triple click 1, 2, 3. All right. Once it's all highlighted in blue, you're going to right click and go to make group. All right, so now that I have this blue box all the way around, I know that I have an entire group here. All right, this is my entire group. So what I'm going to do now is, if you look at your hinge, it has cuts in this top cylinder piece. So what we need to do is we need to prepare for that by adding a solid model on top that we're going to use to cut through. So to do that, all right, we have our group. I want you to click off so that you don't have the blue box, and navigate so that you're looking straight on. And then you're going to take your line tool and you are going to draw. All right, you are going to draw. So you might have to navigate, but you're going to draw a rectangular box all the way around. All right. So basically, we're drawing a model on top of a model now that we're going to use a subtraction for. So take your push-pull once you have your rectangle, and you're going to push it all the way to that edge. All right. So I'm going to give you a second. Y'all can always pause or speed up or whatever you need to do, just to, whatever you need to do to, uh, stay on pace with me. All right. So now I have this solid group, and this is just a model we've drawn on top. So we're going to create two groups here. So I need to triple click my box now. 1, 2, 3. Right click and make it a group. So now I have that's a group and that's a group. That's a group, that's a group. So whenever you create groups, the way you go back in and edit them is you have to double click on the group. So I want to edit this box now. So I double click. All right, once I double click, I get this black dotted box going all the way around. So now I know that I'm actually editing this box. All right, if you get this black box, you're editing this box. All right, so what we're going to do now is we need to basically create segments that we're going to use for subtraction later. And the way we're going to do that is by clicking on this line here, right clicking it, and going to divide. And that's going to break this line. As you can see here, look, you see the little red dots? So I can break it into 2 segments, 3, 4, 5. I want 5 segments because I want to be able to break this into 5 different parts. So once I have 5 red dots, I'm going to click. Well, it didn't work. Maybe you got to hit enter. It's been a little bit. Oh, actually, it did work. All right, so once you have 5, you'll just click, and as you see now, we have 5 segments. So now that we have these 5 segments, we're going to go ahead and draw lines to make them segments. So I'm going to take my line tool, and I'm going to click on the end of this first segment and make sure you draw a red line across. Then I'm going to find the second segment, draw a red line across. Third segment, red line across. Fourth segment, red line across. All right, so once you've completed this, you can see now that these are individual segments. All right, you're going to have individual segments that we're then going to, basically, we're going to separate them here in a second. But before we do that, we need to actually make a copy of this. All right, so if you look at a door hinge, it's a piece here, and they interlock. So we need to actually take this piece and copy and invert it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this one, then hold shift and click this bottom one. All right, so we're doing an addition click. Click this one, hold shift, click that one. So now that they are both selected, I want to make a copy. So again, we go to our move tool here, then I tap control on my keyboard and I click and I drag. You want to make sure that your dotted line stays red. All right, so now my dotted line is red. So that way they're even, they're lined up. All right, so I've made my copy. Now that I have my copy, I want to invert it. All right, so it's facing this way. I want to invert it so it's facing this way. So one way we can do that is by using the scale tool. So if you go down to your move tool, down here is the scale tool. All right, so I actually need to re-highlight. So I'm going to click, hold shift and click again, then click that scale tool. I'm going to grab this middle box here, and I'm just going to drag it to the right until down here it says -1. All right, so I'm going to redo that because my camera is actually a little bit in the way here. All right, so I am going to grab this middle box, and I'm going to drag it across its own plane until down at the bottom right here in the video, see down here it says -1. All right, so I went from 1, I'm at 1 here, and then I invert it over by dragging it to -1. All right, so now these are mirrored copies of each other, which is what we want. All right, so at this point, we now need to make our cuts so they'll fit inside of each other. So I'm going to start with this first one here, and I'm going to double click. All right, I'm going to remember double click means you're editing. And on this one, we are actually going to push up segments 2 and 4, and then on the other one we'll push up segments 1, 3, and 5. So I'm going to show you exactly what that means. So I'm going to grab my push pull tool, and I'm going to go to segment 2 here, and I'm going to push it up. It doesn't matter how high you go as long as you are above the cylinder of the original hinge piece. All right, remember, all these tools remember their previous operation. So if I go to segment 4 here and double click, it'll do the same thing. And now I need to do this on the back side. Double click and double click. All right, so your first hinge should look like this. All right, with segments 2 and 4 missing. All right, so we're going to click off. And now we're going to go over here to our other piece. And we're going to do the same thing, but with 1, 3, and 5. All right, so that way they'll, overlap. All right, so I'm going to double click so I get the brown or black box, get my push pull tool, and then I'm going to pull up on 1, double click on 3, double click on 5, double click on 1 on the back, 3, and 5. So if you kind of look at this, you could rotate and take a look. We can kind of see that we have set this up where they will interlock with each other. So before we can test that and try it, we need to do what's called a subtraction. And this is something new. We haven't done this yet. I haven't demonstrated this yet. So what you do is we have two different groups here, right? We have the top piece and we have the bottom piece. On this one, we have the top piece and the bottom piece. So over here, we have these tools. So we're going to do what's called a subtraction. So the subtraction is the third one down. So make sure you select that. And you're going to click the top and then the bottom. And what it does is it subtracts the intersection of the two groups. So if you take a look, sorry, I must have had that other one selected. Let me show you again. Subtract tool, top piece, bottom piece. All right. So if you look for this one, the intersection is here and here. So if I click top piece, sorry, you got to click off and re-click subtract in between. So top piece, bottom piece, and wherever they were intersected, they will actually subtract from each other. So at this point, let's just make sure everything lines up perfect. So I'm going to click this one and then switch back to my move tool here. And I'm just going to grab it probably on the bottom left. And I'm going to move it. Make sure the line's red. Make sure your line stays red. And wow, look, check that out. Fits like a glove, doesn't it? I mean, you can't get better than that. All right, so now I've created my first hinge piece, inverted it, subtracted both sides, and stuck them together. All right, so now the final thing we need to do is add our pin. All right, so to add our pin, we are going to draw a circle. So you got to try to find the middle. And this can be a little tough. See, you just kind of have to move around, but I was able to find the middle there. And you're going to draw a circle that is the size of this inner circle. All right. So I'm going to zoom in some. So you got to try to find the middle and then draw a circle there. And at this point, we just grab our push pull and we're going to push pull it all the way to the other end. We're even going to poke a little bit out because if you go look at your door hinge over there, there's going to be a little bit poking out. All right. And then over here, we're going to find the middle again. And we're going to draw another circle on top of that. And then we're going to push pull this out and this out so that they're even. All right. And then you can take your eraser tool and just delete that inner circle. So that'll create the kind of cap piece on the end. All right. So at this point, we have this piece, but then we have the pin we just created. So we need to triple click, 1, 2, 3, the pin, right click on it and make it a group. So now we have this piece, we have that piece, and we have this piece. So there's 3 separate pieces here, 1, 2, 3. All right, because they're separate pieces that are assembled together, we can actually make them move independently. And so I'm going to show you how you do that. So what we want to do is we want to select one of the sides of the hinges, and then on the keyboard, if you press Q, you'll get your rotate tool. And if we come up here and we click on the center of our pin that we created and click and then go to the edge and click, we can actually move one side of the hinge along the pin we created. Alright, so again, highlight, I'll show you. We can even click this bottom one. Highlight the bottom hinge, Q on the keyboard for rotate. Want to make sure you get the green rotation. There it is. Click, go to one of the edges and click, and now I'm rotating that bottom piece. Alright, so as you can see, as we're doing this, these 3 pieces are independent of each other. Alright, so I'll show you again. If you click the top piece, Q on the keyboard, you rotate, so make sure you get the green rotate, and then you can see the pieces moving there. So this is our first more complex but yet still pretty simple part modeling that requires 3 different pieces that are assembled. So as you finish this, guys, you know how to submit it. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will be back with some more complex videos that introduce you to even more of the tools in Google SketchUp. As always, please take a moment and subscribe, like, and share, and I will see you next time.